one thing that some people ask about is how I deal with the twine or the things around the bales. I've bought some like straw, older straw or something like that that's in netting, so I cut that off and pull that all off. And most of my hay I put up with sisal twine, and just about all the time, every once in a while when we're seeding or something, there'll be some sisal that gets caught up on some of the spoked closing wheel we use. And sometimes it gets, but it's never too bad because it's sisal. A lot of times it's broke up even before we feed it, and then it's gonna go bad, but it's never usually so much that it's usually never so much that it causes a problem. But yeah, it's one field usually or two, and we just check everything out when you're checking your seed tubes and that kind of stuff, and just carry a jackknife and you cut it off. It's not that big a deal. I don't use plastic twine. I think that would be a little tougher. There too, if I had plastic twine, I'd be cutting that off and pulling it off when I put them out. But I use sisal twine, and it hasn't been a big deal. Yeah, it just rots away right with the sisal twine. Just rots away right with the hay and the manure and everything else, and yeah, in a couple of years you don't see any of it. But sometimes that next year you'll see a little bit, but it doesn't seem to affect much. No, most of the time with trying to set up fencing or anything like that. Now, if some people they're actually setting their bales out and then just allowing like a week or a few days at a time, or even sometimes just one day at a time, but the bales are all set out. I generally have my bales in a hay yard. A lot of my land is rented land. They're fine with me feeding on it, but sometimes the contracts are up in December, so sometimes you don't know. So I have my hay in hay yards, and then I'll feed out. I've fed up to a month, but I don't know. I sometimes you just don't know the weather and that kind of thing. But usually, what I don't do anything fencing wise, because I'll feed for a few days or a week at a time, and so I don't have to really worry about having extra fence lines or anything like that, because that's all I'm feeding at a time. So in years like last winter, where we had so much snow, I think we had 110 inches, something like that, 100 inches. It turns into just like it is for everybody else. You end up pushing snow so that the cows have a comfortable place for them. You push snow for 3-4 hours, and then you got a place big enough you can feed, and then the wind blows from a different direction, and you do it all over the next day. You probably have 1 out of 10 years that are that bad, and that's probably part of the reason I do the 1 or 2 weeks at a time feeding, because I just haven't been able to get myself over that hump where I can just go, well, I'm going to put all my hay out, because if all your hay is out, then you got to dig trails to each row of bales anyway, and I just haven't been able to get myself over that hump. I've done it, and then last year, that was the first year I did leave. I hayed a couple fields, and then I didn't pick them up. I just left all the hay on that field, and my plan was to do that. And that storm came in the fall, and you could just see the tops of the bales, and it was it was the wrong year to try to finally break it, so that it kind of kicked me in the guts, and I ended up digging to each of the bales and that kind of thing, and I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do this, but now this year, completely wide open, and I'm able to graze a lot, but I've got about half of my herd is pretty old, So it's harder for them to compete. So I like to have some hay out there, and I like to give them enough at a time. That's one thing about feeding for a whole week. The weaker bales or weaker cows or younger cows, they don't have to compete with those big old boss cows that are young and healthy and vibrant. Because you're feeding so much at one time, they're able to get feed and stuff. And you still have to watch your cows just like always. It's not like you are on vacation, but you don't have to start that tractor every single day. So when you're starting that tractor, that's expensive too. So and on a lot of years too, you can put it out, and most of the time those cows have better four-wheel drive than your tractor is. They can get through a lot, but sometimes there too, if you got older animals or younger animals that are having to compete, you may have to pull a group off. So most of your herd is out, but you do have a group that you have to baby a little bit, and that's part of your management decisions that you have to overcome, and every year is different. That's why we do this, because nothing's the same. Right. Yeah. You don't get that. You don't get it spread. Sometimes you don't get it spread out quite as much as you want, but it's still much more than just feeding them inside a corral and having to take every ounce of feed to them and pull every ounce of manure away from them every single year. So it is nice. At least you're doing some, and you can actually push different areas open every day too. It kind of depends on your equipment and your time and your weather. Your yards, everyone's yard is set up a little different, and it's if you don't think you can do it, you can't. But if you think you can do it, you sure can. There's different areas, different places, and those cows, they know where they're safe and where they can get out of the wind and where they can, they know a lot better than you do, because they're out in it, and they understand where the wind doesn't hit and where their food is and that kind of thing. So they know a lot better, because a lot of times I'll go out there and there'll be hay out there, but they'll still be out grazing someplace because there's a spot they found that they just, it must be better than what the hay is, or they just don't like being that close to the other cows. I don't know, but they're out there grazing a lot of times. So